Hello friends, welcome to my channel together with Abhi. In this video we are going to talk about EC2 summary. We already have taken a look at the introduction, we have done a lot of practicals, taken a look at the theory. Now it's time to summarize everything that we have learned so far. We will also be dealing with Q&A, the question and answers, to just give you a feel of how possibly could the questions be around EC2. So let's see the summary first. EC2 is the primary service for providing compute. As I had already told you, this is one of the primary services launched by AWS, and this is to make compute available to you at a very economical cost in a very efficient way. AMI represents the initial software state of instance. So when you have to go and buy a computer, or if you go and take a look at the configuration of a computer, you would come around two things. One is the software, the other is the hardware. So the software part, which consists of operating system and the initial applications provided with the computer, those in the AWS language are represented as AMI, Amazon Machine Image. The hardware part, it is represented as instance type, and when we talk of hardware, we are talking about CPU, memory, storage, and network adapters. Based on the usage, based on the kind of usage, your work could be compute optimized, memory optimized, or storage optimized. It could be related to, if in case you are working concentrating more on memory related workload. So based on that, they have divided the instance type into various families like compute optimized, memory, storage optimized, etc. For networking, they have provided you options like enhanced networking, and or else you can have networking features from low to high, low, moderate, and high. The sources of AMI, we discussed this, that there are four sources. One is AWS published, the other is through various partners. AWS provides you AMI through a portal called as Marketplace, or else you can generate AMI of your running instances within AWS itself, or else if in case you have certain machines or virtual machines which are outside AWS or cloud, those can be imported and exported using AMIs. How do we access an instance, a Linux instance or a Windows instance? So there is a key pair mechanism. A key pair is generated, a private and a public key. Public key is stored within the instance, and the private key, which is in the form of a PEM file, .pem file, is made available to you. You can use this file to SSH to a Linux instance. In case of Windows, you can use this file to generate another password which can be used to log into a Windows machine using RDP. What about security protocols? So these are the kind of virtual firewalls, but at the instance level. Do not confuse it with network firewalls, but these are the firewalls at the instance level. By default, they deny all the traffic, so you have to allow any kind of traffic, and these are stateful. So if in case you have some outgoing response, the incoming response is allowed automatically because they are stateful. Security groups allow traffic based on three mechanisms, three things: protocol, port, source, and destination, which can be provided in terms of CIDR blocks or IP addresses. And one has to be there. Instance has to be mapped to one security group. Therefore, when you're going to launch an instance, one security group is created by default. Pricing options, we discussed three options: on demand, reserved, and spot. On demand is the most non-cost efficient way, but it is the most flexible, as in when you need an instance, you can demand it and you can have it. But if in case you already know your workload, best is to go for reserved, because that is going to be cost efficient for you. Spot instances are good if in case you have the capability, or you have the ability to manage intermittent shutdown also. So what happens is, you bid for a spot. If your bid price is greater than the spot price, instance is made available to you till your price is greater than the spot price. Otherwise, it is going to get shut down. You will be provided with a 2 minutes notice in which you can complete the work that you want to complete. Tenancy options share dedicated instances and dedicated host. Shared is the default one. So different customers share the hardware, the host machine, everything. But if in case you opt for dedicated instance, the hardware is provided to a dedicated customer. Okay. It is provided in a dedicated manner to a customer. Whereas in case of host, the entire physical machine is made available to a particular customer. Bootstrapping is to run code programmatically on launch of instance. So if in case you want that during the launch of instance, some kind of program should run automatically. So you can do that through bootstrapping. You can go to user data section in the advanced options, and there you can configure your code. Termination protection, there's a checkbox which if enabled would save your instance from getting terminated accidentally. There are certain exceptions like OS shutdown, etc., but otherwise in normal circumstances you can take benefit from this feature. In normal cases, the IPs are usually mapped to a particular instance. Okay, but if in case you want to have an elastic IP, you can have it. You can have it independent of any instance. You can have it in your own account. And as and when you feel like mapping it to a particular instance, transferring from one instance to another, you can do so using elastic IPs. There are two kind of storage volumes actually that we talk about, the block storage. One is instance store, which represents a temporary mechanism. So if in case you have your data on an instance store, it is going to get lost as soon as the instance is stopped or terminated. But in case of reboot, your data on the instance store would persist. That is why AWS has even took off the option or disabled the option for stop in case of instance store. And the other option is EBS, Elastic Block Store, which is a counterpart of it. It provides you a permanent block storage and it gets automatically replicated across availability zones for high availability. Within EBS, there are three types: magnetic, general purpose, and provisioned IOPS. Each has got certain baseline per GB and the maximum values that we had already discussed in detail. General purpose has an important feature of input output credit. So if in case you have not been utilizing the baseline IOPS per GB available for you, then the amount which you have not been utilizing so far will get credited to your account. It will be saved as an IO credit to your account, and you can utilize this credit when you have the requirement to uh, take it up. Okay, so that is how it is very useful feature. If in case you want to check the metadata of any instance, you can do so. Log into the instance, launch the instance, and there, if in case you hit this specific URL, either from Windows or Linux machine, you should be able to get the metadata of that instance completely. Now let's talk about Snapshot, which are really important feature because they provide you an option to take backup and recovery of EBS volume. So they are kind of a point in time snapshot and they utilize the technology for S3 related. However, they get stored in your S3 buckets, but you do not have access to it. It is all managed by AWS. How you can manage it is through the Snapshots UI, which we have already seen. Snapshots are incremental in nature and only store deltas. They are created immediately, but the data, it is loaded lazily. Okay, so the volume is available for you all the time. It hardly takes any time to create a snapshot, but the data gets loaded lazily. They are also helpful in creating volumes to a different region. So you can copy the snapshot and then in a different region, and from there you can create the volume in another region, which we have also seen in the practical. Snapshots can be used to create volumes of different size. So if in case from a snapshot you create a new volume, you can increase the size. Okay, so this is how you can create a volume of a different size. If you have to create an instance or copy an instance, transfer an instance from one availability zone to another, you can make that you can utilize the feature of AMI. You can create an AMI and using that you can create an instance, copy this EMI from this AMI, just create an instance and launch it in another availability zone. To attach a volume to instance, both volume and instance should be in the same availability zone. This is something that we have seen because in the practical, because our volume and the instance were in the different availability zones, so it was throwing an error, and that is why we had to create an AMI first. Then we had to launch the instance in different availability zones. When both volume and instance were in the same availability zone, then only we were able to attach the volume to the instance. And lastly, EBS optimized instances provide better performance because of no interference in traffic. So friends, these were the main points that we should be focusing upon in terms of EC2, which at a beginner level. There are many other things, but I believe this should be good enough for you to get started with EC2 in AWS. Now, secondly, we are going to discuss about certain question and answers. So the first question that we are going to take a look at is, what is the best way to handle intermittent workload requiring 1500 IOPS for a short duration for an otherwise consistent load of 750 IOPS requiring 500 GB EBS? So the options that we have is consistent, instance, magnetic, general purpose, or provision. So in this case, I believe general purpose SSD volume is the best option. Why? Because you have a 500 GB general purpose EBS. For the baseline of general purpose is like 3 IOPS per GB. So for 500, it would be 1500 IOPS. Okay. But your load is usually 750 IOPS. So you would already have some IO credit that can be utilized when you have intermittent workload for 1500 IOPS. So the correct answer is general purpose SSD volume. Would we be able to modify the Linux instance of type C4 large to C5 large? No. Why? Because you can modify from C4 large to C4 2x large, 4x large, okay, but not to C5 or any other. So the modification is only allowed within the same type, that is C4. So the correct answer is no, it is not allowed. What is the best setup to handle traffic which doubles every start of the month, but otherwise well managed or two instances the whole month? So we already know that we have a need of two instances the whole month. So the best thing is, if in case we have a predictable workload, let's reserve two instances the whole month. And whenever we have, the traffic doubles every start of the month, at that time it is good to demand two instances. So the best option that I feel is run two reserved instances whole month and add two on-demand instances at start of month. Reserved instances are economical in nature, please note that. For how long will the interruption be in assessing the volume while the snapshot is being taken? There is no interruption, as I told you, it hardly takes any time. The snapshot is created immediately. However, the data gets loaded lazily. So the correct answer is no interruption. A volume can be attached to instance within the same region irrespective of availability zone. No, because it is just not the region, but the availability zone is also important. As we have seen in the practical, the instance as well as volume, they should be available in the same availability zone to have the mapping between them. So the correct answer is false. So guys, that is all that we have for today. I hope I've been able to clarify or provide you a good understanding on EC2, at least at the beginner's level. This should be good enough for you to get started on EC2. In terms of AWS, if you see or any other cloud, if you see the most two important things that we have to do is either procure a machine or some storage. Both of them we have covered S3 and EC2. There are multiple other things. The next most important thing would be setting up a data center in a secured way. So that is something we are going to take a look at in the next module, which is VPC. That's all for today. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please like it, share it, comment it, and please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Thanks for your time.